Obviously, if there's good, then there's evil. And that's how we look at it. And it's kind of a shock value. I think people...
In 1986, Dave Mustaine showed up drunk to the studio and destroyed a custom guitar worth thousands. What happened next would cost a record label millions, shatter friendships in the metal community, and make some of the biggest names in thrash swear they'd rather open for a garage band than work with Mustaine again. From studio meltdowns to revenge solos, this is the untold story of why Tom Araya and other metal legends refused to work with Dave Mustaine. Before we dive into this explosive story, make sure to subscribe to Rock Fame Diaries. We cover the most shocking stories in rock and metal history, so if you love deep dives into your favorite bands, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The rise of Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine was born on September 13, 1961, in La Mesa, California. His early life was far from easy. He grew up in a broken home with an abusive, alcoholic father. But instead of letting that define him, he found escape in music. By 17, he was already making waves in the local metal scene, developing a ferocious, lightning-fast playing style that would later define thrash metal. It didn't take long for his talent to catch the attention of Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield, who were looking for a lead guitarist for their new band, Metallica. Legend has it that Mustaine walked into the audition without an amp, plugged into Hetfield's, and shredded so hard that they invited him to join on the spot. During his time with Metallica, Mustaine co-wrote some metal classics, including The Four Horsemen, originally The Mechanics, Jump in the Fire, parts of Metal Militia. But his tenure with Metallica was short-lived. His explosive personality, fueled by alcohol and drugs, led to constant clashes with the band. The final straw came in April 1983, when after a series of drunken altercations, he was kicked out of Metallica and sent home on a bus with no warning. That bus ride from New York to California became legendary in metal history, because on that trip, Mustaine vowed to create a band that would outshine Metallica. Megadeth and Slayer, two titans on a collision course. By late 1983, Mustaine had formed Megadeth with bassist David Ellefson. The name itself was a statement, derived from Megadeth, a military term for mass casualties caused by nuclear war. From the start, Megadeth wasn't just a band, it was Mustaine's revenge mission against Metallica. Meanwhile, Tom Araya was carving his own path in thrash metal. Born in Chile in 1961, Araya's family moved to the U.S. when he was 5. Unlike Mustaine, Araya came from a stable, hard-working family, and initially pursued a career in respiratory therapy before joining forces with Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman to form Slayer in 1981. By 1986, both Megadeth and Slayer had solidified their status as thrash metal powerhouses. Slayer's Rain in Blood, produced by Rick Rubin, was setting new standards in speed and aggression, while Megadeth's Peace Sells But Who's Buying showcased Mustaine's technical brilliance. Despite the intense rivalry, the thrash scene was also surprisingly collaborative. There was talk of a joint tour and a split EP featuring both bands, a dream for metal fans. But this dream would be crushed by Mustaine's reckless behavior. The infamous studio incident. In late 1986, executives from Combat Records, Megadeth's label, and Def Jam, Slayer's label, organized a crucial meeting at a Los Angeles recording studio. The plan? To discuss a massive collaboration between the two bands. Slayer showed up on time. So did the label reps and engineers. But Mustaine was nowhere to be found. Hours passed. Phone calls went unanswered. Finally, around 4 p.m., Mustaine stumbled into the studio, completely wasted. What happened next would go down in metal history. Witnesses say he interrupted conversations, insulted Slayer's production on Rain in Blood, and then, when Kerry King fired back about Megadeth's sloppy live performances, Mustaine snapped. In a fit of rage, he grabbed King's custom BC Rich Warlock guitar, a prized instrument worth thousands, and smashed it against an amplifier. The room went dead silent, before pure chaos erupted. King lunged at Mustaine, but was held back by Jeff Hanneman and Dave Lombardo. Tom Araya, ever the calm negotiator, stepped in to defuse the situation. But the damage was done. The fallout: why Slayer refused to work with Mustaine. The proposed Slayer-Megadeth collaboration was instantly scrapped. Combat Records considered suing Mustaine, but ultimately backed down, fearing bad press. But the real damage wasn't financial. It was Megadeth's reputation in the metal world. Promoters started demanding extra guarantees when booking Megadeth. Metal bands distanced themselves from Mustaine, fearing similar outbursts. In 1991, when Slayer, Anthrax, and Metallica headlined the Clash of the Titans tour, Megadeth was only added to the North American leg, but the bands barely interacted. Kerry King famously said in a 1991 interview, "I'd rather open for a garage band playing their first show than share a stage with Mustaine again." Even Tom Araya, typically the most level-headed of the bunch, later admitted in an interview, "It wasn't even about the guitar. It was the total lack of respect toward Kerry, toward us, and toward the people who set up that meeting. That's what couldn't be fixed." The years of feud and the surprising reconciliation. For decades, Megadeth and Slayer avoided each other. Festivals would schedule them on separate days, and even backstage, interactions were cold and brief. But over time, things changed. Mustaine got sober in the early 2000s. Tom Araya underwent neck surgery in 2010, prompting him to reflect on his legacy. At the 2004 Download Festival, Megadeth and Slayer were seen talking backstage, their first civil interaction in nearly 2 decades. Then, in 2010, history was made. The Big Four, Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax, finally performed together. It wasn't a perfect reunion, but it marked the beginning of the end of the feud. A lesson in metal history. Dave Mustaine is one of the most talented yet polarizing figures in metal. His talent is undeniable, but so are his past mistakes. Today, Megadeth is still going strong. Slayer retired in 2019, leaving behind a legendary legacy. And while the feud between these metal titans may have cooled, the story remains one of the most infamous in rock history. What do you think? Did Mustaine's temper cost him too much? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Rock Fame Diaries for more insane stories from the world of rock and metal. See you in the next one.